Thanks. So now what we'd like you to do is introduce yourselves to us. Just tell us who you are very briefly, a minute or so. Tell us why you're running. And we'll work down the road and then we'll do some. Go ahead.
My name's Curtis Robinson. I'm running because we need to change the state. I think the state was happy to years. It's hopeful we can make changes this year.
Parsons.
I'm Nancy Guthrie, and I'm also serving in the West Virginia House of Delegates and live in Canal City. I'm running because I have always been a champion for working class families. And I think that this session and the last particularly, working class people took it on the chin. And they really got a punch in the gut, if you will. I agree with what Larry says. I think that we have so many challenges, both economically and socially, and just even changing from a, which is an economic issue, from the post-coal mining industry into what's the next chapter for West Virginia. I believe that I have got an awful lot of fight still left in me, and I think that I would like to be part of the solution to some of the problems that ail West Virginia going forward. We can be a great state. I have not given up on this state yet, and I don't want anybody else to either. I think that we've got mountains of opportunities that we can cash in on, but it's going to take some smart investment, and it's going to take some strategic vision and vision, and a lot of leadership too. So that's why I'm running, and I hope people will vote for me again.
My name is Andrew Robinson. I'm a lifelong Kanawha County resident. I went to public schools, ended up graduating from Capitol High School. I then went on to West Virginia University and graduated with my bachelor's degree. While at West Virginia, I had interest in real estate. At 19 years old, went and got my real estate sales license. After my real estate sales license, still in Morgantown, went off to Iowa and got education to be a West Virginia auctioneer, licensed auctioneer as well. I returned to Charleston, as I was always determined to do, and worked in real estate sales and property management, eventually working my way to a real estate broker's license. My next challenge was adding a real estate appraiser license. In the last 4 years, I've put in 3,000 field hours, 400 classroom hours, and now a certified appraiser. But my most important part of my life is my single father and my 8-year-old son. Involved in Cub Scouts, basketball, soccer, baseball, and anything else that he gets into. But I think the reason I'm running is because our legislature is broken. we need new leaders that can work together and get things accomplished. Kanawha County is the largest county, and we need leaders, not followers, who can get things accomplished. I think the county deserves better than what we've got in the last couple of years.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Don Wilson, and I am also obviously here as a candidate for the 36th District for the House of Delegates here in Kanawha County. The reason I'm running is simply because you've heard some people mention change. I think we can't settle for change and change alone. We need change and improvement. And I represent both change and improvement to our current situation. I am the past chairman of Generation Charleston, the state's largest young professionals organization, where I was the chairman in 2014 and 2015. I'm a past Herndon intern, and I was there in 2011 at the legislature helping research laws and do a lot of things related to the legislative process. I helped pass a law that helped children with autism get health insurance in 2011. Not only am I a champion for the working class, I am in the working class. I work here as an insurance agent and broker with Garlow Insurance Agency, where I'm married to my high school sweetheart. It'll be 11 years come June. We have 2 children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I think that we need to attract and retain our young talent within the state of West Virginia. We're losing revenue because we're losing population. That's part of the problem. I also written a drug plan called Prevention, Attention, Extension. And I also believe that we need to tell our own story as a state. While West Virginia is not for sale, we need to sell West Virginia and tell our story. It's people, not politics. Put people first before all other things. And that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Danny Wells. I grew up in Charleston, graduated from Charleston High School and West Virginia University. Then I came to work at the Gazette for a few years, and but I had a wonderful experience as a journalist, but also had a great experience as a member of the House of Delegates. And I am absolutely appalled that we are sitting here talking about the next election when there's the budget for this year. It has not been determined yet. That's disgusting and appalling. And I think if less time had been spent during the session on coming up with laws that discriminate against gays and transgender people and others, and if less time had been spent on rolling back the mine safety laws that were established when I was in the legislature after the Upper Big Branch disaster, if less time had been spent on the water safety laws that were weakened by having less tanks inspected, then maybe the budget would have already been finished by now. When I was there, it was finished every time within 3 days after the end of the legislature. And there's an obvious problem in the legislature of people not getting along. I'm not used to that. That wasn't the case when I was there. And I would like to go back and help solve some of those issues. Thank you.
Okay, well, first, I imagine all of you would like to see the right to work law repealed. Anybody take exception? Everybody agree with that? Okay. Same with prevailing wage. Put prevailing wage back. Okay, there's that up. So let's talk about the budget. How would you see the state passing the budget, balancing the budget? We don't have to go in order. Who wants to go first? Danny?
Well, the 3 areas that are being discussed, and apparently they're getting closer every day, is to take a portion of the rainy day fund, which is up to $800 million. And of course, we all know, or should know, that that's a iffy proposition whenever we dip into the rainy day fund, because it could affect our bond rating, which is a very serious issue. And so the money, some will come from there, some will come from cuts in the government, but the Governor Tomlin has already cut $300 million from the government, and I don't see how we can cut much more. The Republicans don't seem to feel that way. And we need to increase the tax on cigarettes, for God's sakes. our tax on cigarettes is one of the lowest in the country, and 50 cents would be reasonable, although I would probably support $1, except I understand that that would make it so high that people would go out of state to buy the cigarettes. But in addition to providing revenue, which would help us solve our budget problem, or solve them at least for this year, it will also encourage, I would hope, people to stop smoking, which also affects us financially for health problems as a result. So those are just three of the things. I was in there by some group, I don't remember what it was because I was pretty new, and it said, would you sign this pledge to never raise taxes while you're in the legislature? And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good, because who wants to have taxes? And it took me a while to learn that's not, you should never commit to anything before the session starts, because you never know what's going to happen in the session. So anyway, apparently that's happened in the House of Delegates, to the point that there was a group there that aren't going to raise the taxes no matter what. And I think that's a foolish trail to go down.
Okay. Who wants to solve the budget equation next?
I'll take that. I'll take that. I would say that it's called a rainy day fund for a reason. I would say if a $300 million deficit doesn't constitute a rainy day, what does? I don't think we need to deplete the rainy day fund, but accessing the rainy day fund for a small portion to relieve where we're currently headed would be a great idea. I don't think we need to deplete it, but we need to access it, obviously. Obviously, we can't continue to cut education. That's a key component, and it's an economic driver, and it should be there for, we should have great education for our children and pay our teachers an acceptable wage. Obviously, the tobacco tax has been talked about. 50 cents would be amazing. It would be great to help alleviate some of the budget deficits that we have. But I think the bigger story is how do we keep from ending up in this same place again next year? How do we keep from ending up in the same place again next year? If our population continues to decrease, revenues will also decrease. It's just that simple. So I think that we need to figure out a way to keep people here, retain our best and brightest within this state, so that we don't continue to lose population and revenue decreases.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think the important thing is what we see in future years. There's a discussion about a possibility of a 90-90-90, 90 million from the rainy day fund, 90 million from revenue increases, and 90 million cuts. One of the problems with that is that in future years, the second year after this and the year after that, if we don't make revenue increases this year of a substantial sum, then we're going to be seeing huge budget holes in the 2018 budget. The cigarette tax in West Virginia is one of the lowest in the country. We're told that 31,000 people would stop smoking if there's a big jump in the cigarette tax. You need a big jump to $1 in order to affect that. That's to save 16,000 adults from smoking and 14,000 young people. There was a great article in the paper on Sunday about the healthcare costs and the effects of cigarette smoking. So that's a win-win, both in terms of improving the health of people, saving healthcare costs, and also providing $1 will give you $115 million. And that almost is a complete fix of PEIA. PEIA is very important because we don't give pay increases to folks. We've got to come up with some way to have a multi-year funding stream to help PEIA stay solvent. This is really very important, I think. The state Senate's budget was very interesting. They added a 1 penny sales tax, a general sales tax, not the food tax, but general sales tax, which would produce about $200 million dedicated to roads. And I think that's a very appropriate tax, and that would help us. The #1 job killer in West Virginia are crumbling roads. The one issue we should evaluate in everything we do should be evaluated. Does this make jobs or cost us jobs? Crumbling roads. We've got to have a new revenue source to protect and to repair roads. So I think that's something that certainly should be considered. The Senate also increased DMV fees, but one of the fees was a pretty heavy increase in the sales tax for vehicles. what they did is lower it from 5% to 4%, but then they eliminated the trade-in as a deduction. So the actual, there's about a $17 or $18 million increase, and I don't think that's going to help us. We also have a possibility of increasing the food tax, and you could increase it, say, 3 or 4 cents. That would produce a substantial sum of money, but the people you're hurting are the working poor. Now, folks who are receiving assistance don't pay, they have food stamps. Middle class and other folks don't feel that tax much. But the people who really do are working families. And the way you can fix that is with an earned income tax credit that balances it out. It's been proposed at fairly high amounts, but we should be able to balance it out. So that's a possibility. We've got to make sure that we just don't raise taxes on consumers. You know, we've got to look at what we can do and what can be done. It's my opinion that most folks out there want their roads fixed and will agree to adding a penny to the general sales tax if that's what it needs. That's not a complete fix because we're told we need $1 billion, but that would at least be $200 million. And again, we've got to move forward this year with some revenue increases in order to make it more possible to deal with the issues the next year. Now, you know, in the House, it's true. The leadership is really left with, I think the leadership, individual members, including Chairman Nelson, would like to have revenue increases, but they don't have members who are willing to vote for it. Just as someone pointed out, I think Danny's pointed out about the taxpayer pledge. These folks, you know, don't want to go back on that pledge. They're in a box. So I think it's time for leadership. I think we're going to have to raise some taxes. There's a variety of things we can do, and we've got to make sure that those taxes don't levy on.
Let me follow up to what Larry said since he's on a roll. You know, one of the things that's been so frustrating is that most of us, I think, who have been serving feel like we're watching a forest fire and watching the Republican-led House of Delegates argue with the firefighters about how much they're going to pay them to put the fire out. You know, we've got to fix the problem, not just for this year, but also for next year. The quickest way to do that right now is to do the $1 cigarette tax, and also the 1% increase in the consumer sales tax. That puts mostly consumers on the hook. I think we do in the longer term. And right now, I just want to get through budget year 16 and 17. Right now, that both the consumer sales tax, which is $200 million a year, approximately, and the cigarette tax gives us enough to fully fund PEIA and to make maybe about $70 million available for roads, and also to just balance the budget. That would be what I would hope that the Republican-led leadership team would finally recognize. We can't cut any more out of the budget, because what's going to end up happening is that a whole lot of people are going to lose their jobs, and we're going to defeat the purpose because they'll be collecting public assistance. And that puts a further strain on the economy. Like Don said, we need to figure out what are we going to invest in to create new jobs for the future. And that's not a conversation for right now. That's a conversation for the next governor to have. And my sense is that we've got a whole host of taxes that we could look at. I'm really surprised that after all of that tax meeting, commission, select committee, whatever it was that they called it, that we didn't really have, they didn't have a plan for this is our agenda for what we're going to do financially. Should have been the only thing that we should have talked about last year, or our last session, but it was not. And so going forward, we need to make sure that citizens don't share the responsibility, or they don't get stuck with the responsibility alone. We need to look at our business taxes and figure out how do we get anywhere between 400 million to 600 million in tax revenue from our businesses. Then we can also look at severance tax increases. We could look at the food taxes Larry mentioned, and a consumer sales tax. But right now, let's at least agree and not be unflexible or unrealistic. Let's agree that a cigarette tax makes most sense right now. That's what I would support. Gosh, I hope they come off of their positions pretty soon, because we're in day 38.
Yes, sir.
I agree with what they're saying. It seems like everybody you talk to, all the citizens in West Virginia, whether it's Kanawha, London, they always complain about, seems like the citizens of West Virginia has to make up the difference in taxes. I don't like taxes any more than anybody else, but we have to generate some kind of revenue. The cigarette tax, I am in favor for. Larry also mentioned about a tax to repair roads. I think all citizens want our roads fixed. Also, futuristic, I think that will help this state also to generate revenue. I've preached this for the last 4 years at the Capitol, talking to legislators. When they're in session, they talk about the state losing citizens going to another state. Well, there's not any jobs, especially in poor counties like McDowell, Logan, Clay. There's no infrastructure for one. You get roads there, repair the roads, you'll bring more businesses in. I know it's not a quick fix for what's going on right now, but I think that will help the state out in the future.
I think the problem that we're looking at is we've done this before. We've been through our valleys and our highs before. And my neighbor Delegate Guthrie says, let's just make it to fiscal year 16-17. I think that's an issue. I think that just making it to fiscal year 16-17 doesn't give a prosperous state for my 8-year-old son. I think we've looked at, let's get me to my 401k when we should be worrying about K through 12. I think that's the issue. I think that the long-term fix is diversification to the state. We have to look at innovation. We have to be innovative. Within the state, we can be innovative in our processes. We can be innovative with digital printing, not printing, saving small pennies here and there, just like any businessman would do. We have to look at it that way. And a lot of people say, let's look at it as a family expenses or family budget, but let's look at it as a small business. Where can we save money? Can we save money in printing? Can we save money in our mobile fleet? Where can we save those dollars to get us closer to the point where we can not only make it through 16-17, but make it through 2026 when my son will be looking for employment?
Okay, so
You missed one.
The question though is about what you would do for this immediate budget. So those are all interesting ideas. Now, are you saying that you see some places to cut when you talk about printing?
I believe we can look at innovative ways in our processes. I think we've already cut 20% of our budget, and Danny said 300 million. I think we're looking at closer to 450 million that we've cut in the last 4 years. I don't think cuts are where we're looking at. I think we're looking at better innovative processes in our daily businesses that are going to save us the pennies that might get us closer. And then we have to go back and generate revenue to do the same thing to get us through the process. We have to have a mix of both, not just revenue generate. We're looking at things as just revenue generating or just cuts. There can be a combination to get us to the point where we need to be.
All right, but we'll do follow up and then we'll move on. So, you want to talk about budget?
I just about agree with everybody in through that.
Okay.
But we need to go back and see how we got where we are and see what things work around that.
Any specific ones come to mind?
Not any specific ones, because I haven't seen everything that's got us this far in this mess. We're in a mess.
Danny, you want to follow up quickly?
Yes, speaking of cutting taxes, and that always sounds wonderful, but I was in the legislature when, under Governor Manchin's guidance, we cut taxes on 3 items, including the food tax down to 6% down to nothing, and then we cut the business franchise tax and another one. And that's part of the reason that we have this, that created a $300 deficit. We got great headlines and great praise for cutting these taxes with the hope that encourage businesses to come to Charleston. And not only did it leave a $300 million budget hole, but Keith Burdett came along and he was hired to bring in businesses to West Virginia. And he has said more than once that these businesses don't pay that much attention to these tax benefits. They want level land and a drug-free workforce. Those are the 2 main things they're looking for, not tax cuts. So we have a problem in West Virginia with, as you know, with the lack of level land, and we have a problem, unfortunately, with providing a drug-free workforce. So that tax thing works both ways. And Governor Caperton, one of the first things he did when he replaced Arch Moore, and he made up for Arch Moore's blundering with the finances, he brought back the food tax, and I agree with those who say that maybe you ought to look at that again. The food tax and the consumer sales tax. Delegate Morgan from Huntington used to get up in the legislature every year and say, if we put 1 cent on the consumer sales tax, we'd bring in enough. A lot of people like taxes. I understand.
Anybody else?
Charter schools come up almost every year in the legislature. We haven't really talked about it in our meetings because it didn't go anywhere. But I do wonder if you all hear from people in your neighborhood, any call for charter schools or just
Call for what?
charter schools.
Oh,
I haven't heard a call from charter schools, but I think that Charleston's west side would be a good example for the issues that may arise with charter schools. Like you have Mary C. Snow on the boulevard, and then you have Edgewood, which is comprised of more white collar class up there that might invest more in charter school. And then you have west side families that may want their child to go to the more economically feasible or higher dollar school, but aren't able to get them in because of the numbers there. I think those kind of community clashings there might be an issue with charter schools.
I actually work in West Side Elementary School, and what everybody wants is a great education for the kid. I went to Glenwood on the West Side. Mary C. Snow was my principal, and first thing I did is I started researching. When I became a parent, I started researching Montessori school, and I sent my daughter to a Montessori school because I wanted to give her an edge, I guess you say, and the innovation and the hands-on learning that she's gaining at Montessori is really giving her that edge that we were looking for. I think that the parents on the West Side, they want what's best for their children, just like the parents on Edgewood want what's best for their children. If they could afford the charter schools, depending on cost, I'm not familiar with the cost of charter schools. I'm very familiar with the cost of Montessori school, but I'm not familiar with the cost on charter schools. But if it's something that's economically feasible, I think it would be a great thing for West Side children and Edgewood children, if it's something that's proven to work. Because we all want what's best for our children. We don't want the basic. Want to give them that edge. I'm sure all of you, their parents, agree. You want what's best for your child. If charter schools are going to help our children and give them the edge that they need, I think the charter schools should be something that we should at least look at.
In our poor financial times, life of me, I can't understand how we can afford to take money out of the public education system that we have now and put it in some other system. And I've read about statistics about success in other states. It's been fairly successful in some states, but not enough to convince me that we can do that. And I have a bigger concern with the Smarter Balance test and its unpopularity among most school people I talk to. And the legislature voted 99-0 and 27-4 to replace it, and the governor vetoed that bill. I'm not sure why, but so I think that's a more pressing issue. And this bickering between the state board and the legislature and the school system has got to stop. We need to. I think the Smarter Balance test, which educators tell me doesn't give a true picture of how they can address the issues that come about as a result of those tests with the ACT test. And to me, that's a solution, and that's what the legislature is in favor of. Also, this 180-day plan, which is a good one, of course. We have to have 180 days. But schools, it's been pointed out to me, a school in Pocahontas County where they have a lot of snow, if near the end of the year, they've made plans to go on vacations and so forth, and they have all these days to make up, and parents have made plans to go somewhere else. they just don't send their kids to school, so you're not gaining a lot all the time when you require that strict 180-day plan. And I like the idea that the Bailey and others have come up with the using increments of minutes and adding minutes to the day rather than days at the end of the year that can lead you into the middle of June. So anyway, I think that's a more pressing problem than charter schools. I don't think we can afford charter schools, and I'd have to be convinced that they have shown some positive results.
I'm against charter schools. There's two reasons why. I think it will leave a lot of kids behind. We're trying to build our future with our children. My kids are grown, they're out of the house, they're a little older now, but I have a granddaughter who's less than a year old. We all want more for our children. Thing came out years ago with George Bush, no child left behind. They're left behind right now. I think charter schools will put them farther behind. The other part about charter schools, the teachers would be left behind salary-wise. There's a lady I know that works in Columbus, Ohio. Her mom is a teacher here in West Virginia, and the woman that works at a charter school in Columbus makes $20,000 less than what her mom does in West Virginia because she works at a charter school. That's two reasons I'd be against it.
Let me be on the record. I'm not saying that charter schools are the answer. I'm saying that parents want what's best for their kids. And if doing the research and finding out that charter schools are the answer to that, then it's something I would support. I'm not saying I support charter schools. I don't know much about charter schools. I know that my daughter and my children go to Montessori school, and they enjoy that. It's an outside the box way of teaching. I do think we need to look at some of the curriculums that are currently involved in our public schools. First and foremost, we need to pay our teachers a fair wage. I don't think they're compensated fairly for the amount of work that they do, and the fact that education should be an economic driver. And it really is it's the training. You're training our future workforce. You're training our future workforce. What's more important than training our future workforce in our schools? We need the money to be in our schools, and we need improved outcomes from our schools.
Yeah, I don't favor charter schools at all. And first of all, we can't afford it, and this is just not the time to be approaching a new school system. What charter schools would do would be to basically to fracture resources in these. And there's some places where they have property taxes that are collected and used for the school systems where you live. So if you want a good school, you got to go pay and live in a certain area. Kanawha County is wonderful. One of the greatest benefits of living in this county is that your children can go to any school that has available spaces, which is most of the schools. My children wanted performing arts, one in orchestra and one in drama and show choir. And they were able to go to schools that specialized in that. And it was absolutely, they both blossomed with that education. So I think that the charm of charter schools in West Virginia won't be the same because we have economic diversity in most any of the counties that we have. And when I say economic diversity, you know, the kids of professionals and the kids of coal miners and the kids of school teachers and everybody kind of just go together in a school. And they're truly community schools. And I think they do a pretty good job. We expect, but the problem is that when I was growing up, we didn't expect the school system to graduate everybody. We expected the school system to produce people about to 10th grade and then put them in the factory. So there's a different kind of atmosphere and different kind of social system than we have today, where we really push for the schools to take care of every single child. And that's a good thing, but it's very difficult for them to do it. But I think right now we can't afford charter schools. I don't think that fracturing the school systems on a local basis is really going to help us at all. And and also I should say that I think we need to let teachers teach. Educators should be the ones making decisions about what's appropriate for curriculum, for testing, and so on. And somehow we've worked it to where it goes to the state office, and now the legislature's trying to litigate science standards and everything else. And it's way out of control. We need to let teachers teach.
Sorry, I heard you. How do you see the legislature's role in education? Because it seems like the legislature is getting more and more involved in education and curriculum instead of letting the schools sort of figure out what's going to work for them, leaving something in place long enough to see if it's going to work. How do you see?
Because that's something that's near and dear to my heart. I think one of the biggest last couple of years is that because of this radical Republican-led movement that we've got going on in the state, we've politicized the education system to the point that we never seem to get back to what Don was talking about. Every family wants the best for their kids. I think most legislators want the best for their kids too, but somehow in those discussions, all of that seems to get lost. And suddenly we're chasing Common Core or charter schools or draining other resources from our public schools, which was a contract that was made with citizens that if they pay taxes, they were going to have good public schools. And so what I would like to do is to see us get out of the way, make sure that the schools have got enough money to have modern facilities that kids can go to make sure that teachers are well paid, and probably better paid than our surrounding states, and to make sure that the curriculum gives kids the basics that they need to graduate for jobs that they can get. That's what I think we're supposed to be doing, but instead, we have somehow decided that we're experts at everything, and we're not. Teachers need to be allowed to teach. There have to be some standards. We need to figure out, are our kids performing well? But we don't need to micromanage the education system.
I believe the legislature's position in education is to provide a good workplace. To provide a good workplace, to find a competitive ways to get good teachers here, and to develop an environment where teachers want to come and develop curriculum and have experts in the field, the people that are in the classroom each day, develop their curriculum that way. I don't think legislatures should be in there telling a teacher how to develop or teach a person long division. I think we should be developing a place to get the best experts in the field to come and do so.
Yeah, one of the things that used to bug me when I was growing up was when I saw one of my teachers working a second job. I remember my science teacher, I think I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I went to Kaufman's to buy a tie for church, and saw my teacher there working. And I was 13 years old, 14 years old. So I didn't really understand why my teacher had to work a second job. And my mom sat down and told me, teachers don't earn enough money. And that's why their name is working a second job. And that stuck with me from 12 or 13 on. And it helped me decide what I wanted to be. But I can't think of a more important job than a teacher in your child's life. They're shaping, they're molding, they're with your child as much as you are throughout the school year. And if we're not going to compensate those people adequately, we're not going to attract the kind of people that would desire to be a teacher. You see, if we don't adequately pay teachers, you're not going to get the best and brightest students out of high school, and at WVU, and at Marshall, and at all the colleges here in the state and around the country that are going to want to come here and teach. They're not going to do that. We have to adequately pay teachers. That is something that we must do. We adequately pay our engineers, and we get people, and the best and brightest going to be engineers. If we adequately pay teachers, the same will follow.
Well, not only does the low pay fail to attract quality teachers, but it makes teachers go other places, especially on the border states. You go to Maryland, Virginia, and make a lot more money. And not only is the pay a large issue and almost embarrassing, but when they don't fully fund PEIA, that's just like another cut for teachers. And so I'm hoping that if these people ever finish debating the budget this time, that the PEIA would be fully funded, but that's another issue. But I used to, there's apparently a pretty big difference in the way the State Board of Education feels about policies in schools and the legislature. And I don't like this micromanaging on either part, but the state board seems to support the smarter balance and the smarter balance test did not. So I don't like that. Bickering might not be the right word. The differences of opinion there. Where does that leave the school personnel from year to year? The legislature says do that, and it's a very unsettling situation.
Tell them what criteria they have to use. It's about like myself, being a natural gas worker and a union officer. Tell them, Delegate Rowe, how to practice law. I'm not an attorney. Legislators aren't teachers either. Teachers know more about what they should do. They should be teaching children. And kids are always going to remember that. I remember my grade school teachers just like anybody else does. You're always going to remember their names. And they're the ones that's going to mold our kids to teaching the right things. The teachers will give the kids the best opportunity in life. Legislators, they're making laws and policies saying you have to do a certain criteria and it's not working. I think it's wrong. I think the legislators should stay out of it. To a certain extent, I agree with Guthrie that legislators' job is to fund the schooling, fund new schools, to operate and to have certain things for the children to help them grow. But as far as the legislator making the criteria, I absolutely disagree with that.
Anything you want to add?
I agree with just about everybody that do, but the legislature shouldn't be making the rules for schools to go by. I think each individual school should set the rules and guidelines for their criteria, because each school can be different. And funding the schools, that's your legislative job, not telling teachers how to teach. And I don't agree with charter schools. I think they say that. I think that's just another bureaucracy we don't need.
I'm just a little bit confused here because I hear a lot of, I know what the legislature do to interfere with public education, and yet I also hear a lot of we don't need to keep the standard balance, so we don't need to keep the standards that are on the board. And the legislators are the ones that want to get rid of those on standards. So it just seems like there's a little bit of a disconnect. Am I not understanding that correctly?
I mean, I just think hands off. I mean, it's my opinion that in most agencies, we defer to the agency's expertise. For some reason, the last 2 years, it's been a war on the State Board of Education. I don't understand that. I mean, as I said, let teachers teach. I think professional educators should be determining what the curriculum is, what the standards are, and what the testing of those should be, and when they occur. We provide a place for folks to teach and students to learn. That's our job, and the rest of it, I think, should be done by the experts.
And I think right where the disconnect is that that we can't even seem to agree in the last couple of years, the last two, to let the standards that the Department of Education and the schools are putting in place, let them stay in place long enough to see if they're working. I mean, and I think that's what basically Larry and most people are saying. It's like, look, let's stop with the gimmicks.
I understand that. I just, like I said, I think several people, at least a few people are saying, yes, let's keep the legislature out. But at the same time, let's get rid of the standards that were in fact mandated by the State Board of Education.
No, we need standards. We do. Let's just let the ones that have been established work. And then we'll see where we are.
So I'm a lifelong resident of the 36th district, and I've seen how drugs especially have taken hold of the district, and how it's changed the neighborhoods, it's changed the composition of the neighborhoods. The legislature has taken some steps in the past couple of years to address that. What do you guys think the legislature needs to do in the future to continue continue fighting against drugs?
I'll gladly take that. I think we need to, and I've written a drug plan. It's called Prevention, Attention, Extension. It's a 3-pronged plan to help fight the drug epidemic. The prevention component would obviously focus on educating children and families on the warning signs that are related to drug use, and educating children on the risk factors associated with drug use so that they never use. And if you never use, you never abuse. And obviously, it also encompasses law enforcement. I think we need boots on the ground. And the first time that you meet the local police officer should not be, in a crisis. I grew up on the west side of Charleston. I'm also a lifelong resident. I've seen drugs, deplete communities. But the first time officers should, so that's part of the component. The attention component would focus on people that are currently addicted or using drugs. We need more facilities. That's going to take more resources. We need more beds because we need recovery. These people addicted need recovery, and the attention component would focus on more beds, more facilities, more resources going to them recovery. The extension component would obviously encompass once they graduated the program, that we help get them acclimated back into society and paying taxes and getting jobs and buying homes and we don't have to hold their hand all the way through the process, but we have to see them through the process. It's called prevention, attention, extension. It's a way that we can help fight the drug epidemic because the drug epidemic is not only killing people are dying, so we need to do something about that. But it's also hurting our image and it's hurting our workforce and it's breaking down our families. You're having, if a dad gets addicted to drugs, you now have a single parent home as a result of that because he's not able to be an effective father. If a mother, it's the same issue. And if a child's affected by it, you just saw that locally with the family affected by the death of their family. I lost 3 friends that I graduated high school with in the last 15 months due to this drug epidemic. If we can't fight for people that are dying as a result of this, what should we be doing? We should be fighting.
I think it's encouraging to me that we finally are able to have a discussion about addiction. 10, 15, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have even been able to have this discussion, an honest discussion about it. It is eating up our communities, and we do need more beds. We need more facilities. And I think one of the ways to get there would be to attach a registration fee to the DEA licenses of doctors and now the nurse practitioners and perhaps the pharmaceutical companies if they need a DEA license to sell drugs, and take that money and use it to expand our treatment facilities. I think one of the first places we probably have to look is with the excess capacity that we've got in our rural hospitals, like Montgomery. Montgomery's got some excess capacity. If we could figure out at the very front end in the detox section and have enough money to staff that up, we could use some of our excess capacity in our rural areas to begin to get them ready for a step-down unit into a longer-term treatment program. All of that takes money, but if you do attach maybe $1,000 registration fee yearly to a DEA license that somebody would have to have, then you finally, I think you end up with about $10 to $12 million that you can begin to expand our system of care. Because Don is right, it's killing our communities.
I think the issue here is we need more beds. We can keep saying that, but what kind of beds are we going to get? Are we doing an abstinence program? Are we doing a medical program? How are we getting these people off or detox? How are we getting them? What process are we going to go about? But the real issue is we have beds available. There are other opportunities. There's a recovery, Union Mission has a recovery center there in South Park Road. He's guaranteed me he always has a bed available if someone's in the need. I think the problem is getting someone through the door. We need to sit down and find a way to get addicts through the door of these centers. Until we get to that point, we're not combating the addiction. We're not combating the epidemic. We're combating one by one. And I think the issue is finding a way to get addicts through the door. As everyone said, I think we've all been probably touched by drug addiction. There's not a person in our age demographic or something of that sort. We can probably count 5 to 10 people that have passed away, incarcerated, or something of that sort within the last 5 years. So I think we can keep saying we need more beds, but I think we need to go back and research the best way to get someone through the door and the most successful way to get them back out the door and as a successful individual in the community.
I agree with just about everything, obviously, has been said, but I think more education should be pointed toward parents and the type of medication they're receiving from their doctors. I had a knee replaced last year, and the doctor hands me this. That's the first time I ever heard of it, oxycodone, I think it was. And I was instructed to take one of those every day before I did my therapy. I took 2 of those on 2 different days, and I couldn't, must have been a low dose, but there was no education about what I was taking. And the worst case was David Grubb, my friend David Grubb's daughter, who just recently died from. She had some surgery, and she was an addict at the time, a recovering addict. And she was given 50 pills. And of course, the doctor claims he didn't know she was an addict. That's another problem. But I think parents should be aware that doctors are used to just handing out these pills. And I think that's a major concern. As an example, was the Grubb girl. 50, why would you need 50 pills under any circumstance? Anyway, that's just another avenue that I don't hear discussed very often.
I would disagree with there's enough beds, though. I've talked to numerous families while I'm knocking on doors, and numerous families just through my work with Keep Your Faith Corporation and other nonprofits. And the story I always hear is we had to drive to Ohio, we had to drive to Kentucky before that we could find a facility with an open bed for my family to get my daughter help, to get my son help. And I think part of that is part of recovery is having your family close by. And if we've got facilities close by right here in this state, the recovery process will be a lot better and a lot more effective.
The problem we have is there's beds there. They may not be the optimal prescription of that person. There's faith-based, there's abstinence programs. There are programs out there. I had a friend that got his Medicaid card 3 days before he passed away, 3 days after he passed away. So he would have gotten a bed at that point. Insurance isn't paying for it. We have to find a way to get the people through the door. And if that's going to South Park, which is a work program, they do some work and along with rehabilitation. If that's the way to get them through the door and then into a bed or a detox center, that's what we have to do. We have to find a process to get people through the door.
Like Don was talking about, I think educating our children and even the older people, that's one of the big things. The other ones, I agree with him also. There's not enough beds. They just closed a facility in Clarksburg at Highland, the detox unit. We have one here in Canal City at Highland that has a detox unit. I don't know how many beds they have. My wife used to work here. She's RN. She's seen that. There's one in Huntington, Mitchell Bateman Hospital, I believe. And I think there's one more, might be in Beckley. I think it's about all there is in the States. We do need more beds. Also, addiction isn't a crime. It's an illness. And these people need help. And without facilities to help them, it's not going to get any better.
I will say this: addiction is definitely an illness, but the criminals selling the drugs need to be prosecuted. And with the bed thing, if our goal is recovery, we need to make sure that the bed and the facility is adequate for recovery. I think there needs to be some sort of transition in place, but the ultimate goal has to be recovery for the people addicted to drugs.
I think that I absolutely support programs, new healthcare facilities for rehabilitation and so many things. But, we've really got to change the culture about drugs. I mean, and now finally people are starting to say that drug addiction is a disease. It's not criminal activity. But at the legislature, we haven't changed that. I mean, in judiciary, we just get bill after bill after bill, increasing the minimum penalties. you know, transporting across state lines an extra five years for marijuana. You know, if it's to sell, and really it's not even sell, it's deliver. To deliver it to your grandmother, to deliver medical marijuana to your grandmother was going to be a 5-year extra penalty for the person who takes it to her. Could be medical marijuana from who knows where. You know, so we've got to, I think, embrace and look very squarely in the mirror at ourselves as public leaders about how we approach drugs. You know, these folks are really members of our family, and I so respect the public leaders who've come out and said, look, my son, my daughter has this problem. You know, we've got to accept these folks. One of the most important bills of the session was the second chance bill, which was a bill where if the person's convicted, and you know, and prosecutors say, well, we just are going after the drug dealers. That's just not what the drug dealers at the lowest level are people who are addicted to drugs. So, you know, the second chance bill was proposed, and what it would do is anybody who's a nonviolent offender, a drug offense, maybe other offenses, if their record is there for a year, and then if they don't have any other offenses in 10 years, they're automatically expunged. One of the things we've got to do is to empower people who have stopped their drug activity. A lot of folks who are just in college are very young. If they have a felony, they can't do this, they can't do that. We've got to start expunging those records to encourage people to be rewarded for the fact that they've become good citizens again. And that's going to take a mindset change. And I think with that mindset change, we're going to have to start looking at what drugs are good or bad for us. I think it's clear, as some of the others have said, that the pharmaceutical industry and physicians and the medical community generally, it's sort of like if they're in pain, give them whatever they want. I think that the new standards on the giving of those medications and education about is very, very important. But we also have to look at where we are in terms of drug use, you know, and alcohol use and other things that are causing addictions, and try to help people instead of criminalizing. And that has been our approach. The war on drugs has been an absolute disaster. And the generation of folks who are living and suffering with that, who can't get jobs, who have felony convictions, you know, from their youth, we've got to come up with programs to reward these people and help get them back to work. We did pass an important bill that's not really on drugs, but the folks who had driver's license, they couldn't get a driver's license because they had many tickets. We did pass a special provision on that second chance to allow them to make payments on those charges so they can get their driver's license back. And the idea was, how can we get these folks working? You know, every time we deal with an issue, we ought to go back to jobs. You know, where are the jobs? And really the basis of the hope, there's hopelessness in the land. In East Kanawha County, you can't do what your daddy did. You know, there aren't coal mining jobs, deep mining jobs. There may not even be surface mining jobs. You know, there's no jobs for, you know, people in maintenance job work and that sort of thing. So there's a general hopelessness. And I think if we can diversify and turn the economy around, that we'll see a lot less drugs. I think it won't be a cure, but it certainly will get us on the right track and prevent the spread. And then if we change our mindset about drugs and stop criminalizing people who are addicted, that are selling drugs, and get them into programs of rehab, I think that will go a long way to helping us on this problem.
I think the number one thing is education, that we all talk about. We ought to talk to our children about it at young ages and tell them the famous saying that was back in the day, just say no. Tell them about it. They don't want drugs. Educate people, you know, start at home. The schools need to educate the kids about it too. We don't be able to head it off that way. Because usually you got peer pressure in schools and you want to do what the other person does. And that gets into a situation that children can't really handle and stuff to schools and all. We might be able to head it off some that way, just educate them about it. It will be on the right track. And, you know, it is an illness. We see it everywhere. It don't matter how rich they are, it don't matter how poor they are, or how in between. I mean, it happens everywhere. But we need to just educate people.
Okay.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.